Hi, welcome to my kitchen. I'm just finishing a Nosher's buffet. If you don't know what a Nosher is, I'm really sorry because you haven't spent enough time with Jews. Jews came into this country as the very, very first immigrants. You know, they came with the rest of Europe. And those from Eastern Europe who speak Yiddish brought with them a tradition that we generally associate with the American Jewish delicatessen. And one of the words they use is the word nosher. And a nosher is one who eats all the time, all the time, all the time. He nibble, nibble, nibble. He eats through the world, you see. And I love it because I'm a nosher. And I certainly love Jewish cooking. I know a place here in Chicago where we can find Jewish food that's very, very close to the kind of thing I've loved in New York for years and years. It's called Samuel's. It's on the corner of Broadway. And it's a marvelous place. But you have to remember when you get in there, it's going to be pretty hectic and pretty busy because during the lunch hour, everybody lines up and orders marvelous sandwiches. He makes sandwiches out of corned beef, pastrami, anything you can name, wraps them up, and then you grab them and run. Or the smoked fish, puddings, and look at the pickles. I love good pickles. This poor guy can't stand it any longer. For heaven's sakes, feed him. He's all right now. Salamis, these are beef, and always, this is corned beef now, always corned beef and good beef products so that there's no pork fat about. That's important. And smoked lox, and the deli case. He can make an enormous selection of trays for you so that when you throw a party, it'll really be lovely. Covered with turkey, not the party, the tray, covered with turkey or salami. You can have a marvelous time. And of course, the breads are important too. Bagels, a classic. It's really a boiled dumpling is what it is. Goes great with smoked fish. Goes great with any kind of meat. Look at the selection that he puts out for you. I just love places like this. And it really is a haven for noshers. Once you get going in a spot like that, read a menu like this, and it's absolute frustration. But I love that kind of frustration, and there's no reason to give up on it. So what we're going to do now is to consider our own Nosher's buffet. I brought back with me from Samuel's a couple of sandwiches. I want you to see these. This is the same one that he was wrapping up for us. Look at the size of this rascal. Look at the meat that's in here. Let me get it out of the paper. There. That's the corned beef. And I have a pastrami sandwich that's equally as heavy with meat, you see, just beautifully made. Look at the pastrami, gorgeous. And then I have another sandwich. This one is a triple meat sandwich. This one is made of tongue and salami and corned beef. And if you, yes, you did notice there's only half of it there. You know why? I couldn't help myself. On the way home, I lost control and dove into it right in the car. Marvelous food. The other things that we should have on our buffet, of course, would be lots of pickles, salami, bagels, matzos, and lox, beautiful lox. This is a dry smoked salmon. It's not a hot smoke, but a cold smoke, so it's almost raw. And then finally, here's a recipe that I just won't have time to show you today, but I do want you to see what it is. This is Gefilte fish. This is from Mrs. Kleiner in Tacoma. She taught me to do this dish. And it's always served with red horseradish. It's a great dish for Passover and for special festivals. It's a boiled, kind of a boiled fish ball, and it's just delicious. Just absolutely wonderful. Let me put this on our tray here of goodies. Now let's get started on what we're going to add to the tray. The first one is the glorious matzo ball. Now I admit that if you don't make these carefully, they're going to turn out like lead balls, but I want you to make matzo balls. They're very light and lovely. Into a bowl then, I want to crack 2 eggs. Okay. And we add to that, if I can find a fork for whipping here, we add to that some schmaltz. Now, you can't make good matzo balls without schmaltz, and schmaltz consists of chicken fat that you've rendered from the chicken that you buy in the market. In the cavity of the chicken, you'll find great chunks of fat at the southern end of the chicken. You know where that is. And to take the fat out, it will look like this. You see, little pieces of fat, and you place that in the frying pan with no oil at all, and just very gently cook it, very, very carefully, until it becomes almost crunchy and brown, and the fat is golden yellow. Don't burn it. You mustn't let this smoker burn. Now I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of this in my eggs. 2 tablespoons of chicken fat into 2 eggs. Yes, you can do this with vegetable oil. Of course you can. But I promise you, it's really not going to taste as good. On the other hand, you have to admit that chicken fat is terrible for you. But, you know, a nice meatball now, a nice matzo ball now and then. Pinch of salt, and I need a couple of tablespoons of chicken soup. Now, let me talk about chicken soup for a minute. That's, you know, Jews claim that you can heal the whole world with chicken soup. putting 2 tablespoons of chicken soup into my mixture now, and we'll put that back to work here because it's almost time for the matzo meal. All right, now let's talk about the soup. In my kettle, I have cooked, I'm going to shut that down, I have cooked a whole batch of chicken backs and necks, or you can use whole chickens if you like, about 3 pounds, 2 quarts of water, a few carrots, some yellow onion, a whole yellow onion, about 4 stalks of celery, peppercorns, half a dozen or so, and a bit of salt. And let that cook for about 2 hours. You see all the fat? Look at that. See all the fat that's on the top? You've got to get rid of that. You know how I do it? Let me show you. First of all, I take all the bones and vegetables out of the stock, you see, and then run the stock through a fine mesh strainer so that you catch all of the little particles of chicken meat and vegetables in the strainer. Then you have a pot full of plain stock, right? What we want then is a tube, and don't tell me you don't remember this from your junior high days, because I know you do. You siphon the soup stock from the bottom of the kettle with a siphoning tube, which is lower than the pot, you see, which means you're going to wind up with very clear, nice soup, and the fat will be at the top of the pot. The other method, of course, is to put it in the refrigerator overnight and let the fat congeal, and you can take it off the next day. But I'm convinced chicken soup doesn't taste half as good the second day as it does the first when it's made fresh. So use the old plastic tube method. You can buy those in any hardware store. Okay, back to the matzo balls. I have 2 eggs in a bowl, 2 tablespoons of chicken fat, 2 tablespoons of soup stock, and exactly 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now I want to put some matzo meal into that, and we need 1/2 cup. What is matzo meal? Well, let me show you the cracker here. Lean over everything. This is the big matzo. And this is a classic part of Jewish cuisine, of Hebrew thinking as well as cuisine, you see. And what I want to do is to take 1/2 cup of meal made by the matzo. You can buy this in any good supermarket. And you'll stir that into the mixture of egg, chicken fat, soup stock, and salt. Now you're going to say, how's he going to mix a matzo ball out of that? Look how wet that is. Well, that has to go in the refrigerator for about ½ an hour. And at the end of ½ an hour, I'll show you what you get. At the end of ½ an hour, it's going to be much firmer, and it'll be easy to handle. You see? You see? And nothing flat. It's very nice and firm, you see? So now we can mold some matzo balls. We need some wax paper on our counter here so that we don't make a mess out of the whole business. And we need to moisten our hands. Keep your hands wet so that this doesn't stick. And you take about a tablespoon, I'm sorry. You want to get 9 or 10 of these out of the bowl here. Now I'm not going to have time to roll all of these for you. You get the idea, huh? You should get about 9 or 10 of these. You see them? Now, they go into a pot of simmering, heavy simmer, I suppose, water. You don't want to boil them to death or they'll fall apart. So be very careful. Let's check the pot here. Boiling water, good. That's just about right. You see, it's not doing much. And we'll throw them in. I assume we would have 9 or 10 of these. Put the lid on, and in 30 to 40 minutes, you have matzo balls. Did you see how little those rascals were? When they cook, they become much larger. And here are my matzo balls all ready to go now. And I'm going to put them into the chicken soup. Cook them for about 5 minutes, just so they warm up, you see. Take them out of the water. You understand what I've done? Out of the water, heat them up again in the chicken soup from which you've drained the fat. And then you serve them like this. Oh, I don't even want to do any more today. I want to sit down right now. I doubt that you can eat 5 matzo balls at one sitting. Although, listen, a good nosher, any respectable nosher can eat 5 matzo balls anytime. I've done it many times. We need some parsley on the top of that. And we have a marvelous dish. The rabbi in our city in Tacoma, Rabbi Rosenthal, tells me that my matzo balls are very respectable. And he should know. He's a nosher too, and a very good scholar. That's the best of the rabbinic tradition, isn't it? You know, Jews don't sit around and talk about history and theology. They eat it. Every food that comes to the table, particularly during Seder time, has some marvelous significance. And it's great fun to consider the meal as you consider your past. It's very important. Bowl of matzo ball soup. Are you ready for that one? I love it. All right, the second one that I want to make for you today is really kind of a disastrous thing if you're on a diet, but it's a classic cheesecake. Now, I have eaten frozen cheesecakes. So have you. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. It is not what I'm thinking of as a cheesecake at all. So this one is a good dish, and I think you're going to have fun with it. It's easy to make, but it is fattening, because there's nothing but butter and sour cream in it. 1 cup of graham cracker crumbs. Add to that 1/4 cup of melted butter and 1/4 cup of sugar. Stir that up, and you have a basic crust for the bottom of our pan. We're going to use a 9-inch ring form. You know what that is? Well, you'll find them in any hardware store or cooking supply house. Now, once you stir this up with a fork, you see if it's still lumpy like this, then you have to work it with your fingers a bit. That's nice. Now I'll get my 9-inch ring form, or spring form, not ring form. Spring form pan is what you want. You know the gadget. It has a little spring on the side, and it'll pop open for you when the cheesecake is done. Put the graham crackers with 1/4 cup of butter and 1/4 cup of sugar in the bottom of the pan, and just pack it down all the way around the edges. And we're ready now for our filling for a classic New York cheesecake. There is no gelatin in a New York cheesecake. Please. Please. There we go. All good Jews know that you don't put gelatin in cheesecake. Those are goy. Those are for goy. That's a Yiddish term for one who's simply not Jewish. And that covers everybody else but the Jews, you see. Gelatin in cheesecake is goy. So let's put, for our filling now, we want 2 eggs. I'm going to put it into a food blender here. You can use a food processor, of course, if you like. 2 eggs. 1½ cups of sour cream. This is very rich, but it's very, very good. Oh, where'd the rest of my spoons go here? We'll just use a wooden one. 1½ cups. This is a pint of sour cream, so that means it's 2 cups, and I'll just take out everything but ½ a cup. Sort of. All right. There we are. And now we're going to add to that a bit of vanilla, and that's about 2 teaspoons of good vanilla. Don't buy phony stuff now. 1, 2. If you're nervous about that kind of measuring, why? Be nervous, but with a little practice you can do it too. Now we're going to austerize that for a bit, or blend it, depending on what you have here, until it really turns into a... There we go. Blend it for about a minute, will you? Okay. At the end of the minute, we're going to put in an entire pound of cream cheese. That is to say, 2 of these half